Gotta go. Yeah, I'll call you back. I'm with that realtor lady.
In every real estate transaction, something comes up that the buyer or seller may have a question about. But in the heat of the moment, the question goes unanswered. Each episode, I talk with real estate experts and real estate vendors to provide a look at what goes on behind the scenes in the real estate world to get you answers. I blend in local Santa Cruz history, add some tips and tricks, all designed to help you be successful in your next real estate project. Tell your friends you can't talk right now because you are with the Realtor Lady. Hi, this is Michelle, and you are with the Realtor Lady. And I want to just say thank you for everybody who's been listening, downloading, subscribing to my podcast. I really appreciate it. This podcast is nowhere near done or polished where I want it to be, but I'm always working on it. And in the meantime, I've moved studios. So now I'm here at home in what I call M Studios, which is basically my shed in my backyard. So the sound quality could not be so great. There'll be bumps and bruises along the way while we're trying to figure out the right equipment and get me set up. But in the meantime, I have such great guests coming on. So please just stay for the content, and the polishing will happen later. But today I'm super excited to have Caylie Soon on from the City of Santa Cruz. She is a waste management assistant, I believe. And we are going to talk trash, and I'm super excited. This is a passion for me. I don't normally talk about what I'm passionate about on the podcast, but this is something that's really near and dear to my heart. There's not a piece of trash that I don't drive by, walk by, that just sends me into a tailspin. I seriously even think about it in the middle of the night. So just something I am always concerned about. So I wanted to bring that concern and what it looks like in the city of Santa Cruz here. So Caylie, take it away. Introduce yourself and talk about your position and how you got to where you are. And then we'll move into what people should know about Santa Cruz City Waste Stream.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle, for inviting me. I'm super excited to also talk about trash and garbage and the landfill here in our beautiful city of Santa Cruz, something that kind of goes forgotten maybe sometimes. And yeah, my official title is Waste Reduction Assistant.
Oh,
that's what we want to do, right? After all, is reduce all of this waste as much as we can.
Yes.
So, yep, I've been with the city now for about a year and a half or so, and there's always just so much more to learn than you could ever know about waste. So I'm excited to dive in a little bit.
And I think that it's not a very sexy topic. I get asked about it since I got the designation. I've had people, I've had the neighbors call me and go, do something about this. I've become the neighborhood garbage waste monitor. And I think people actually are. It's just not sexy enough for the news.
Yeah, I would agree. And once you do get a little piece of information, for me at least, the bubble of curiosity just continues to grow.
Oh my gosh.
Well, what can I do with this? And then, as we learned in the Master Recycler program, it's endless.
It's just endless. So because I'm a real estate agent and like to give people a behind the scenes or a little bit more information they may not normally get anywhere else, I thought maybe you could start with talking about someone's just moved to town and they're kind of curious about our waste stream and what they should understand. So they get their cans delivered, maybe the bare basics of what that looks like. And then we can move into the bigger picture of what's going on with the landfill.
Yeah, definitely. So basically, you will be signing up for a utilities account, which includes your garbage and your water. And what is included in that is 3 curbside carts, which is a yard waste, a recycling, and then your trash. And what you're deciding on is the size of your trash, basically. So, there'll be a few. Yeah, you want to just decide how much you're generating, really, to decide what size trash you want, and then the other 2 parts are standard size. And the first thing I think I would like to make everyone aware of is that as you're moving, of course, you're going to have extra boxes, or you're going to be looking for new things to add to your home. So we just recommend checking out Nextdoor, both to post extra boxes or material that you're trying to get rid of, or looking for things that people may be selling. There's lots out there, and people in Santa Cruz tend to have an eye for funky, fun things. So don't be afraid to look for used items or to sell off, items that you're trying to get rid of, instead of resorting to just landfilling all those items, right? Or recycling all that extra cardboard. There's definitely probably a better home for those items. So that's the first thing I would recommend, just to think about. Just pause a moment with all of that stuff you're looking at and think about the best way to dispose of it. And then second, which is probably the crux of recycling in this whole entire world, is to erase everything that you know about recycling from that first day in third grade that we even learned what it meant, right? Because it's a little bit different everywhere you go. And I'm sure you've experienced that, Michelle, too, where it's just slightly different. And then unless you look at the guide, you might be lost with what to put in that blue cart.
And then I want to tag on, I think we're going to mention this more than a few times, probably. Oh yeah, it's further in the outline, but I want to make sure that people understand when they move here to not put the things that they don't want after they've moved out on the sidewalk. We just had somebody move in.
Yeah. So on that topic, before we do dive a little bit deeper, I will also really mention to utilize the city resources. Which would include, so when you do move in, you'll also be, if you're in a single family home as the account holder, you will be mailed a kind of a
it's a welcome kit. Yeah, you do get that.
Yeah,
right.
So it's got a little brochure with some information. It's got our recycle bin guide, and these are some kind of golden tickets that you don't want to miss. It's 4 bulky item tags. And what those are stickers that you can put on, say, an old mattress, an extra bag of trash, or a broken piece of furniture that you don't want anymore. And all you got to do is call customer service, which the information is found on that tag, and just set up a date, and we can come pick up that big old refrigerator or something for you. And to what you just mentioned, Michelle, with items out on the curb. We see that everywhere. It's not only in Santa Cruz, like free piles or come grab this, up for grabs type of thing. And we just, for lots of reasons that we'll go into later, we want to avoid that as much as possible. But our website offers resources for you. And again, donating is a great option. You can put them up for free on Nextdoor, Facebook Marketplace, etc. But we just want to make sure those items are kept up on your property until they're ready to go to that next home. It just lots, and there's a whole list of issues there that can happen. And I will also mention here just things to kind of understand about our waste stream here in the city of Santa Cruz. We are a vertically integrated sanitation operation, meaning that the city itself owns all of the trucks. We employ all the drivers. We run the landfill and so on. Versus more often you see contracted public haulers. So basically what this means is that, again, we as waste reduction staff and my team, we're super, super available to you for any questions that come up that are regarding disposal or, hazardous waste. Those we get it all. So don't be afraid to reach out to us. And on that same note, we even offer public landfill tours, which we haven't been able to do because of dear old COVID in the past year, but I super duper recommend taking a landfill tour. Even if you're not so excited about waste, there's lots to learn, and it's just very eye-opening and gives sort of a personal touch to those carts in front of your house that we hardly think about. So
it just feels like such a local thing to do too. When you're there, you're just so close to that's just such a personal part of our world, and there's all these people coming in with all their stuff. So you see the landscapers, you see the haulers, you see the homeowner, and I always just feel like, it's kind of a slice of life up there too. I love the dump.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really shines a light on the fact that there is no away, it's going somewhere. And unfortunately that looks like filling up a space of beautiful land at the end of the day. That's what's going on.
That is like ocean view property up there. I mean, it's got some of the best views in town.
Right?
Yeah, there's our dump. Oh, you want to go look at the ocean? Well, sure. I got some stuff I want to throw away.
Yeah, right. I felt for a field trip.
So, on that note, what is the future hold for our landfill and our dump? As I was mentioning before we started recording, is that Alviso over in Santa Clara County has basically a per item dump. It's really just broken down into almost every little piece of garbage is going somewhere. I also think that they really lean on their manufacturers to figure out where that stuff is going to. When tech came in, they jumped on that pretty quick. What does our future hold for our landfill?
Yeah, I really love this question because, again, it's not a part of the whole waste stream that we think about. We think about the collection of recycling and yard waste, and then the trash is kind of a back of the mind concept, even because, again, the landfill is not in our face, and until you go up and see it, it's like, well, something's going on here. So I also want to pause and just kind of think about that term landfill, and I really encourage everybody to kind of shift their vocabulary there, and at home start practicing using the word, oh yeah, put it in the landfill bin instead of just the trash or garbage, because I think it's really easy to just trash or garbage and then you don't think about it. But at least in my personal experience, the more that I've used just the term landfill, it's a bit more impactful. And like when I'm shopping or something, like, oh man, this is going to fill the land one day. So just thinking about that term, it's kind of a fun thing I like to play around with and encourage others to practice as well. But so, us here in the waste reduction staff, really our ultimate goal is to preserve the life of that landfill, which means extending how long we can use that landfill until we have to cover it up with land and cap it off and find our next place to fill the land, right? So how long can we make it last? And actually, we've had some really interesting recent developments that have shown through COVID. So to give you a picture there, so pre-COVID, our Dimeo Lane landfill, which is just up Highway 1, for those of you who don't know of it spatially where it is, it's just up if you go towards Davenport there, north on the coast, it's just that way. So pre-COVID, it was estimated that we had about 42 more years left until it was full. And we recently opened a cell, and basically what that is, a space in the landfill where we start filling and maintaining, and then we open the next, cell to start filling. So we opened a cell about 3 years ago that was meant for 7-year lifespan, and we're already getting close to filling that. So it looks like a 7-year cell is only going to last us 3-4 years. And a lot of that is due, at least we can assess, kind of from COVID, because of more packaging, right? And just historically, a lot more packaging has been being produced and manufactured. Clean outs during COVID. We all had a spring clean out day or month or week. And we just really saw the impact, and lots of, bulky items, big items filling the landfill. So it's been quite a fast, quick development that we've seen just in this last year, and it's only telling of what's to come with the increase in packaging and this sort of fast fashion or material, like purchase, buy the new thing, and it's easy to throw away, and things that are just made, lower quality. It's a lot easier to just say, oh, it's done, it's at the end of its life, when we get a new one. So really, really interesting. And luckily we do have the state of California on our side with programs like the Bye Bye Mattress program and carpet recycling program, which we'll get into a little more later too, but we have resources that can be found on our website about that. And I don't know if I said it earlier, but our website to access it is pretty easy and memorable. It's just cityofsantacruz.com/recycle right. And maybe we can put that in the show notes, but I'll mention it again, I'm sure. But
what was that? cityofsantacruz.com?
Yep, /recycle right.
Okay.
And there's a whole gamut of resources there, including, if you want to dispose of a mattress or the carpet recycling program, So there, there's lots of ways we can keep things out of the landfill, but it also comes down to re-examining our personal overall waste generation, even in our everyday, residential parts, because it all has an impact. And then that also, brings me back to the bulky item program. Those stickers really are meant for items at the end of their life, not necessarily things that are still usable, but you just want to say goodbye to, so consider donating, because those are the items that, unfortunately, they're usually big things and they fill up our landfill quickly. So if you want to make an impact there, try donating before just throwing things out.
Right. Donating, but not putting out on the curb donating.
Correct.
So I actually do use, so I use Facebook Marketplace. I don't, this is my little tips that I do. I don't list anything for free. It brings out the crazy. So I usually determine something's worth like $20 or $25, then I price it at 10. It goes fast. And if it's worth 10, I'll price it at 5. And it just goes fast. And then the people who show up. So if you don't really want to, if you don't want any contact with them at $5 or $10, you could say, leave the money under the mat. I bring the item out to the front of my porch, and then I often meet them. They pay me, but it's all very far away. And if they want, I wear a mask, or they are wearing a mask. I felt very safe. I did it the whole time. Of course, they were all items that have plenty of life left. It wasn't anything that was broken or, and then I use Facebook Marketplace. Craigslist is actually, it's pretty good. There's a lot of locals there, and some items will ask, in the Craigslist post will ask for locals, please. And that's because the item is bulky, and we don't want to be holding an item for somebody who's coming from Northern California, which is so common. They want you to hold it for 4 days because they got to get a truck. So we asked for locals only. And my husband just sold a very heavy item on Craigslist, and he just kind of waited for the guy from La Selva Beach to kind of percolate to the top so we could get it to him. So there's tricks. I know people find it very cumbersome, but it's not really that bad. The other thing I just learned too, for Craigslist, you can actually put in a YouTube video. So I make an unlisted YouTube video for items to show that they actually are working. So you can just show that video in the email. They can determine if they like the looks of it. You can kind of do a walk around and show that it works. And then you can cut down all the people that are going to bother you. Because I know some people don't like to be bothered by these random emails that are weird and strange. That's another way to just get the interested people.
Yeah, those are all really good tips. I do really like the tip too, pricing it down a bit. That will get you more hits on it. Because sometimes, if you put the price on there, people are like, eh. But if you price it down but you're okay with it going for free realistically, but you just give it a cheaper cost.
A lot of stuff, if I could find a good home for, I wowould give it to somebody. But often you just don't have anybody that really wants what you're trying to get rid of. But you find somebody, but it's just, typically what happens is at $5 to $10, if it's in that range, it'll go to a good home. Yeah.
And the YouTube tip is wonderful as well, making sure people know that it works, because that's part of it too. People don't want to make the trip over there to come look at it, but if they can see a live video of it, that's super helpful.
Well, and it's so common now. People are used to video for everything. So
a quick clip. Yeah. And then, going back to that feature of our landfill, the next natural step we would think as another way to preserve that landfill space, right, is, well, let's recycle more, right?
Yes.
And what can we recycle? That means it's taken out of the landfill, but I really encourage everyone to remember back to that 10 minutes in third grade when we learned about the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. Somehow we got stuck on recycle, but really reduce is the best. And taking it even a step further here in our office, and it's become kind of common, is the 6R model, which actually begins with refuse and then rethink, reduce, reuse, recycle, and lastly rot, which actually has to do with food. And there's some state legislation happening right now to get food out of the landfill, which is wonderful because that's got a whole range of issues associated with it as well. So, reducing your food and watching, maybe preventing food waste in the first place is another great way to care for our precious landfill.
Yeah, speaking of which, I got connected with somebody on Craigslist. We're just still emailing back and forth at this point, but it's a couple who will come and pick up your vegetable scraps and coffee. And they actually don't care if there's meat in there. So I don't know how they're processing this, but they sound like a very organized system for this.
Wow.
And we're pretty excited because we have a compost, but it's we just don't get to it for whatever reason, and just seemed like this would be easy to do. But the other thing is we put too much coffee in it, and we need to find another resource for the coffee, which is a filter a day. So the yard can only do so much. The yard has coffee and coffee. I think that the people who help us with our yard, I think they think we're nuts because they don't know what that random brown piece of paper is with stuff in it. But I have noticed at the landfill, while we're on the subject, is there is the food waste
Pre-processor machine
monster. The big monster. So what's happening? When's that going to come online?
Yeah, definitely. So we've been working with different things, and here I will also, for those of you who are a little more interested and want to geek out on food waste, we have a webpage about that as well. It's just that same cityofsantacruz.com/food waste, no spaces. It'll give you some background information. But yeah, we are really trying to develop some programs. We have some pilots and stuff that we're testing out. And, part of what I mentioned, that legislation actually is going to require organics, including food collection. So yes, it's in the works, and everybody stay tuned. But check out that webpage. There's lots of great information there.
I would almost think for food waste, people would have to be able, this is going to sound crazy, but it's almost like they'd have to get approved.
Yeah, right. I mean, as you know, recycling is hard enough to keep contamination out of.
Yes.
Which is something very important for all of you listeners. Just make sure you're keeping contamination. Look at that guide that I mentioned earlier, keep contamination out. But right, that's part of it. That's part of our outreach that we're doing in our office. So it's a whole another thing to tackle.
I'm excited. I've really watched the food waste because I was of mind with our compost that we could throw everything in. And after we did it for a few years, my husband was like, no more avocado skins or seeds because they don't break down, and then we can't get, if there's too much of that in there, we can't get it out from the little door of the stuff that just kind of comes down. It makes it complicated. Peach pits. We have abundance of lemons and oranges at some point.
Oh, yeah. All challenging things to compost.
Right. So I'm excited for if we can put it all in there.
Yeah. Yeah, and the meat too, that can be challenging at a home. But yeah, for anybody who is interested in home composting too, we have a backyard home composting rebate. So you can purchase a rebate composting bin from a local store, and then we can give you a $40 rebate here from the city. So that's an option to explore if you are looking to compost at home. And I can be a resource if you need troubleshooting or just guidance of any kind if you're interested in that. So,
yeah. Yeah, I'm excited about the food waste one. I'm always bummed that when I have to put stuff in the garbage, that's not going to go in the compost.
Yeah, right. So I think the takeaway with, the future of the landfill with all of these things is recycling and composting is a part of the puzzle, but there's so much more we can do, right, to preserve and kind of care for the landfill and be thoughtful. So.
There's definitely been items that I've looked at that I've wanted. I'm like, it's too much packaging. I can't deal. I just can't do it.
Man. Yeah. That's what happens. It's just once you see it, you can't almost unsee it.
Yeah, you can't unsee it. I have noticed some just good. I bought some curtains from Bed Bath & Beyond, and it was just a simple cardboard fold over.
Wow.
With a tiny plastic hanger. It still had a plastic hanger, but it was two pieces, one very small, And cardboard was good cardboard. And then that same day, I ended up at Costco getting a lotion that was in a cardboard box, opened that up, no other pieces of plastic in it. And it was just
Wow.
straight up good cardboard. It was a good day.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. It's a good
Like,
day.
oh
I
boy.
like that.
Yeah. And see, I remember it. So
Um,
that's how rare this, this is.
yeah. And that's part of what it takes is just letting the manufacturers know, like, hey, we like this. This is what we want.
I've actually tried to, they didn't have it this week. Last week, New Leaf had strawberries in a cardboard box
Oh, mhm.
and they cost more. But I've tried to buy those. Also, I believe it was at Shoppers. They had them in the little green basket, but I don't mind those so much because we use those baskets around the house. So those
Mhm.
get used. But, the clamshell, of course, is just one of the worst things. And that's always such a bummer.
Yeah, and depending on where people may be moving from to Santa Cruz, we just have such an abundance of beautiful, beautiful produce here, and it's worth supporting the people who are going to put it in a cardboard box. And I don't think that exists as much. Even we don't even see it too much in Santa Cruz, but I think even outside of Santa Cruz, it's even more rare. So
Yeah.
it's pretty special, and we want to keep it going.
Well, the neighbor, once I sent out a mailer kind of branded to me because I was kind of combining what I'm interested in with some information. And my neighbor came up to me. She was so upset. You know what I mean? You can't recycle clamshells. I just
Oh.
killed her puppy.
Yeah, and sometimes that's that person, you may have changed the life of that person, and in a
Yeah.
good way, reducing waste. But right, initially it's a little like, oh man, what are you telling me? But it's just the truth.
So that leads into wish cycling. You want to explain wish cycling?
Yes. So for those of us who don't know or haven't heard the term wish cycling, it's basically when we hope and wish that somebody else or some other way something is going to be recycled, even though maybe we know it's not going to, or we don't know for sure. So we put it in the blue bin, close our eyes and close the lid, and just hope that magic happens. And I, unfortunately, am here to tell you this notion of wish cycling actually is hurting the recycling stream and hurting the likelihood of all your good recyclables from being recycled. So, that being said, it's much better to put an item when in doubt, throw it out, unfortunately, or find it out. But yeah, don't wish cycle. I know we all want to do it, and we've been trained, and we can't blame anybody or anything. That's the way, recycle more, yay. But it honestly just becomes contamination, unfortunately. And not to mention, the city landfill. If you ever do get to take a tour, you'll see that there's lots of hand sorters. So you really want to think safety and simplicity, because there's hand sorters and the line is going so fast. They don't have time to analyze these bits or take apart something that a piece of it could be recycled. If items are bagged in a plastic trash bag, that's a big one we're trying to tackle. They don't have time to rip it open and look at what's inside. So keep it all loose. And yeah, don't wish cycle. Just look at the guide and stick the pictures there, and that'll be good.
And then the wish cycling would also be putting stuff out on the curb.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about where it likely ends up when you put your stuff on the curb for free?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like we said earlier, free piles are technically considered illegal dumping. And the reason for that being is one, it's an obstruction for pedestrians walking by, or say somebody in a wheelchair. If there's a big dresser in front of them, they're stuck basically. It's an issue for emergency vehicles. Often those things migrate to the natural environment and don't have a home, and that causes environmental pollution issues, safety issues. It's just the whole list goes on and on. So please don't do that. And if you see others and they're your friends, encourage them to take another route and option. And if anything, pull it up on the sidewalk for safety of pedestrians, especially now. School started back again yesterday. King Street was full of people, and lots of bikes, lots of kids, lots of cars, lots of working vehicles. So anything we can do to keep it as safe as possible is best. So it's really a safety issue and an environmental issue when there's free piles like that. So
Yeah.
please avoid. And, something you might not think about, a lot of people, as I've worked here and in this industry, some of those things may go away, but the reality is it's often us, the city, a city truck removing that item because it's a safety hazard or an environmental pollution hazard. And all that means is, the more time we have to spend cleaning those things up, the more man and people power that takes, and the more money it costs. And, down the line, if not already, that could translate into a higher utility bill in your pocket. So avoiding that is just.
Oh, there's the takeaway. By not doing this right, you can actually send the waste bill up for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And not to mention, we have started a tagging program where we do tag items, and mostly it starts, we start with a carrot, but sometimes it leads to a stick, and we do have to charge the individual account, which we don't want to do. It's a huge rate. So please call us first, or reach out if you have questions. But
let's see here. Uh-oh. Can you hear me?
not.
It paused for a minute. Your internet connection is unstable. Zoom does that every half hour. No, it's okay. It's a Zoom thing. I've noticed that it's usually on about a 45-minute call or Zoom call. It's right about the 30 mark.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a buffering thing. So anyway.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and yeah, while we're on the topic, of other, just as you're dealing with things to dispose of, sometimes you have items that don't belong in your recycling bin or in your trash or in your yard waste. And there are send-off programs that you can look into. Some unique ones would be mascara brushes going to the Appalachian Wildlife Refuge to clean animals that have gone through oil spills or have, so always look into recycling outside of just the blue bin, because there's lots of options, not to mention like hazardous waste and those sorts of things.
Somebody was having a conversation at another table, and me and my husband ended up talking about it, but what to do with old clothes. And the person said, oh, well, we just send them to Goodwill, and Goodwill's like, fine, we'll take all of your stuff. And I said, well, yeah, but here's the thing. The stuff that Goodwill doesn't use, more than likely they send it to a third world country, and it sits somewhere in their landfill.
Yeah.
And what the point that I was trying to make is, and that's under wish cycling, is it's not really going anywhere. If you consider the whole planet as small as your own little world, it didn't leave your world.
Right.
Yeah. So that was kind of a bummer, because clothes aren't made as well as they were at one point that you would hang on to. I have some older clothes that aren't really fashionable, but they're still pretty good. So they're still hanging in my closet. Sometimes I can wear them, but they've held on so good. And then some clothes I get, it's like, wow, this just wore out. It's just no good. What do you do?
Right. And another piece of that, unfortunately, is when clothing or any organic material that is makes it into the landfill and decomposes. I'm going to nerd out a little bit, but when it decomposes in a landfill without access to oxygen or in an anaerobic environment, it off gases methane gas, which is a really powerful greenhouse gas, stronger than what's coming out of your car. So avoiding that at any cost is really important. And so what that looks like, how do we avoid it? I know it's easy to accumulate clothing, but getting things that will last you longer and maybe cost a little bit more in the beginning, but you have the longevity of it and you can use it until it's a rag to clean your house with, and then you've used it all the way to the end. So.
Well, maybe COVID could help slow that stream a little bit. I mean, I didn't buy, I usually buy clothes a couple times a year for work just to refresh my wardrobe, and I just didn't need to. this year.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I'm not going into the office, so I'm just basically dressing for client meetings, and they're a couple times a week, but it's not the going to the office or going to meetings, and because
Yeah, and
online.
if anyone's looking for inspiration, this woman, I mean, she's a professional zero waster, so it's a big aspiration. But her name's Bea Johnson, and she has made a name for herself in zero waste, and she presents herself very professionally with, I don't know how many items of clothing she has, but she's got like, I don't know, let's say 14 items of clothing that she she does her TED Talks in, and she goes to these big meetings and speaking events and everything. So she's super inspirational if you're looking to delve into the zero waste world a little bit in any part of your life.
Well, I think it can be all overwhelming. What I would recommend is that people really focus on one thing that they can kind of handle. For me, it's kind of my kitchen. So we really kind of focus on making sure all the food gets eaten down, it gets cooked, it gets reused, that food gets taken care of, and we're not actually throwing stuff out of our refrigerator away. It's if any food waste that we cannot compost, it's from the preparation of a meal. So I've really zeroed down for sure on that. Then when I'm out shopping, I'm always looking for less packaging.
Yeah.
We actually need paper in our compost because it's so wet. So I'll take brown bags once in a while from stores just because we actually need that. But I think that's kind of been my area of, and then like I said, some items that I'm trying to get rid of, I try to figure out a way to have it go live somewhere else. But for the rest of it, I could say I'm totally not perfect at all. But I've got one focus, and I've really just tried to stay there. And that's what I would recommend if this all sounds overwhelming. If you feel like you have too many clothes, if there's a way you can find out how to recycle those in a meaningful way, maybe that's what you can do.
And speaking to your specific audience here of new homeowners, being one of them, you get to start fresh. So, if you're moving into a new space, exactly what Michelle said, pick one thing you want to focus on and go run with it.
And try not to let your house get full of stuff. Unfortunately, I see a lot. It's become more, hoarding is more of an issue. It's people filling up their homes. I think I have a broader idea of why that is, and I think it's kind of sad. I think a little bit of a loss of community and how people live with their families has them hang on to their family items longer, because that's holding their family closer to them when they can't live close to them or have them in their circle.
Yeah.
So I think some stuff is actually replacing things that have been taken away. And hopefully with maybe Zoom and social media, maybe people can figure out how to build those communities and still feel connected without having to actually have an item fill that space. So that's my take on it. I don't know if that's right, but that's, that was my grandmother's. And I got rid of most of my grandmother's stuff from my great grandmother. I've never met her, and I don't need a rocking chair. And I sold it to this guy for $40, and he literally hooted when he was out of his car because he was so excited he got this antique rocking chair, and his wife wanted one, and it was good. And they're using it, and I don't know that person, so I don't need to hang on to that to be attached to family. And that might be hard for people. I'm not trying to judge on anybody. I'm just trying to, I guess, and my husband started to see it too, is getting rid of that item doesn't mean, or moving it on. Actually, I want to be careful how I say that, because I want to make sure everybody moves things on. But moving an item on doesn't mean that you care any less for that person. And I think that's what I run into with people and their things, is they think that somehow that person is going to find out or be hurt, or it's not memorializing them. And I think 9 times out of 10, that person will be like, if you found a great place for that and you think of me, I'm happy you think of me,
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
But let's go on to some good news. What I saw, Maine and I believe 3 other states are going back to the producers of items to make items recyclable, basically holding the manufacturer accountable, which has been done with beds and carpeting here. But is there anything coming along in California well, TVs have to be I think taken too, right?
Yeah, it's part of the e-waste. Yep. But yeah, so regarding packaging, yay, applause for Maine. They got it all squared away with packaging. So California still making some changes with packaging, nothing quite as stringent as Maine, but so California Assembly Bill 842 requires that by 2035, there's some time there, but it's progression anyways, that all single-use plastic packaging and products distributed in California must include 75% post-consumer content. And basically that creates a market for all of these recycled items uh, that we're putting in that blue bin. So it's recycling is a business at the end of the day. It needs to be sold to somebody to make something new, right? That's what recycling is. So by this going into effect, this bill, it will create that market for those recycle items and make it easier for recyclability to be successful. And then instead of looking for products that can be recycled, look for products made with that post-consumer recycled content. It's something I would certainly suggest. And especially virgin plastic, it has actually been cheaper than recycled plastic lately. So that's partially due to more electric vehicles being on board and less demand for oil and gasoline. And I will say with underrepresented communities also being some of those who live and work closest to these plastic manufacturing companies, it really can be impactful if you can start reevaluating just even one item that you're purchasing. But yeah, that bill, look for post-consumer recycled content to let the market know that people want that. And then we also just recently there was a statewide commission on recycling where they talked about Assembly Bill 343, which is not enforced yet, but it would help to regulate false environmental messaging on packaging, specifically plastic packaging. And it would aim to actually completely remove that chasing arrow picture and then cut out some of the numbers because it's just so confusing for all of us and it's unreliable at the end of the day, and it gives that wish cycling a lot of support, right? Which we don't want that. So yeah, and then like you said, the mattress program, the California Product Stewardship Council is a Californian version of EPR, which is extended producer responsibility, which is exactly what it sounds like. It extends responsibility to the producer of those products to do something with it at the end of its life, not just make it and expect us, the consumer, to deal with it or the jurisdictions to deal with it. It actually forces them to have a plan really at the end of it. So
yeah, that goes back to when we had that conversation in one of our classes about those home chef meal boxes, and they were telling people that it was recyclable. I don't know if you remember that, but
yes.
And then it was Leslie, I think, who called them all the way up the chain and said, so who's recycling? Well, it's recyclable. Well, that's the other people.
Yeah.
That's the disconnect when I have talks with people about garbage. It's just like, that's great, it's recyclable, but who's recycling? Who wants it? Well, China, they want it. And like, nope, they shut it down. It's like, okay, fine, it's recyclable, but who wants it? So to actually say to the manufacturer, you have to have some responsibility in it. And then you can only hope that a couple big ones, maybe Coke, would figure out a collection system and they would just recycle their own bottles. I mean, they used to do it with glass. Could we not do that? I mean,
I know, it only makes sense. Right.
I mean, it seems like full circle and then just getting everybody to that point. But again, garbage is not sexy. And so.
Yeah. And another item that a lot of us, especially moving in or out of a home and all throughout getting mail packages and stuff, is styrofoam. That one, it's still very prevalent in packaging. Luckily, we don't see it in food as much. But if you don't know about it, Gray Bears is a wonderful place for recycling all types of materials. And that's local here. They're on Chanticleer Avenue in the county of Santa Cruz if you want to look them up. But they will take white, clean styrofoam. Not popcorn or anything, but they can turn that styrofoam into a place that creates like crown molding for homes. as well as picture frames, I believe. So look into them if you're trying to recycle, sort of off the beaten path items. They'll take a lot.
I rode by a garbage can the other day, and the styrofoam was in the garbage can, and I honestly thought that was a win.
Yeah.
Because normally it's in the recycling or on the
Right.
ground or even in the green way. I mean, I was just like, oh, it's in the right place. I'm good.
Oh, right. Yeah, I know. Part of my job is auditing, and I drive around and I see a big styrofoam, and I have the same thing when I see it in the trash. I'm like, yes, okay, well, at least it's in the trash, not the blue cart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, one more point before we go. I just want to hit the compostable food containers are not truly compostable, but they might be with the food waste monster.
No. So,
they are in marine.
Yeah. So what's going on with the food compost material is it actually is a really super duper controlled composting environment with really specific temperatures. Somebody that needs to be there to watch it and then process it. So the answer is no. That processor is really that we have here is it's more of a series of screens. It's not actually a temperature controlled environment or anything. So no, all food to go items, including cups, lids, straws, utensils, and the to go containers are all going to be garbage. And there is some information coming out that all of these composting facilities that do accept these compostable items, often a lot of that material is becoming residual and they're not able to break it down in the way that it needs to be able to sell off as compost. So little bit of greenwashing happening with those products.
Greenwashing, that's good.
And yeah, another fun.
I have a funny story. I actually I didn't steal, but I took some water cups from our work that were compostable water cups, and I thought, oh, I need some extra for my party, so I'll bring them to my party. And the cups started melting in people's hands in the sun. No. So they do break down. They literally, I was just standing there watching the cup just kind of crinkle, and they're talking and they don't notice, and they go to set it down and it just falls over. And one of them just literally, it was a big one, and it just like turned into, so they, in the sun, it's a really good chance they may fade away, but yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and it's interesting to think too, it's like that stuff ends up as what we're going to grow our food in, or what animals are going to be interacting with. It's kind of there's so many facets to ways to look at this, and yes, it has some good application when it's appropriate and disposed of right, but in general, it's just another product and it has its own pluses and minuses. And we could always go further on that if anybody wants to talk to me about it. But
or if they want you to come speak at their business, I'll put your contact in there, and I'll put your email in there, and they can see if there's a bigger office that would just like to make sure that everybody understands what's going on, and or maybe educate their clients about items as well. But I really, really appreciate you doing this, because this is just, we could talk for hours. I expected 45 minutes. I've got another like half hour that I could totally talk to Josh all day long. I love it.
Yeah, well,
I'll put your information in there, and they can, is there anything else you want to add before we go?
I think one last thing, really important, probably for safety reasons and everything, if you have batteries, sharps, fluorescent light bulbs, hazardous waste, paints, all of those things, we have a household hazardous waste facility drop-off open on Saturdays at the landfill, and please bring those items there, or call us if you have questions.
Yeah, and I would also add, if they're really struggling or they're senior and maybe don't have the ability to take care of that, to please call in and see if there's any way to make sure, instead of just throwing it away. Yeah.
Yep. We're here to help.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And Yeah, I look forward to talking trash sometime soon.